Says the Zohar on that pasuk, on that verse, Yitzhar is a painter. There's a good painter and a negative painter in each one of us. There's a good decorator and a not such a good decorator inside each one of us. And says Rav Nachman, he's quoting that verse, Vayitzar Hashem Elokim b'shnei yudin. Why two yuds? So our sages tell us, Moshe Rabbeinu asked the question, Hashem said to him, Shehem shnei yitzrin, yetzer toiv v'yetzer hara. There's a good painter and a bad painter. A good decorator, a bad decorator. There's a good designer in each one of us and a not such good designer. Who are these two designers? Continues with Nachman. Hainu machshavas yetzer toiv yetzer hara. Hainu machshavas toivas hem yetzer toiv. Umachshavas rois hem yetzer hara. Is that very clear? The thoughts that we have, there's two types of thinking. There's good thinking and negative thinking. The yetzer tov is when we're thinking good. The yetzer hara is when we're not thinking good, we're thinking negative. And out of Torah mitzvahs, out of 613 instructions, how many of them define how I should think? Tell me what to think, how to think. Out of 613, do you know?
648.
Well, there's 248 positive mitzvahs, 365 negative mitzvahs. Out of those, that 613 total, how many of them are totally believe depend on what you and I think? You have a mitzvah to love another Jew. Where do you do that? It may be manifest in a simple kindness you do, but where does it begin? It really begins in your mind, in your thinking. When you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where's that mitzvah? Oh, it's in your mind. Yiras Hashem, where's that mitzvah? The awe of God, that's it. That's also in your mind. Oh, Emunah, where do you do the mitzvah of Emunah? Where's that start? That's in your mind. Bitan Chavschus, to when you see someone do something absolutely wrong, you're sure it's wrong, but you're given a mitzvah, but tzedek tishbait amitecha, to judge your friends favorably, which means the Torah is actually telling you, you with your own eyes and your mind saw, heard this person speak, say what they did. And it's negative and it hurts. And now God is saying, by the way, I have a mitzvah called B'tzedek. With righteousness, Tishbait Amitecha, you should judge those who are amongst your people. Which means that if you have anywhere in your creative imagination any interpretation that could possibly put this person in a favorable light, which of the two should you select? What you heard and saw from your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your teenager? How many of you have had teenagers? Okay, so you can understand why some animals eat their young. Pure humor, no reflection on reality whatsoever. So sorry. So really, just no reflection on reality whatsoever. So when I see or hear something that I think is wrong, and God says, well, I don't want you to rely on what you see. He says that several places. Lo taturu ahare levavchem. Don't follow after your thoughts. Lev means mind. Levav means thoughts. Says Sefer Charedim Parak Tes, Levav means thoughts. Levavchem, your thoughts, your good and your not good thoughts. Don't follow them. So whose thoughts should I be following? So God says, oh, good question. Learn my Torah and you'll learn how to look at the world. Because what you see is not real. The person you're looking at, that's only the kli on the outside. That's only the body on the outside. What this teenager has been through. You and I can't fully appreciate the challenges because you and I aren't born in their generation. What our husband or our children or our wives or our kids or our mother-in-law has been through. Sorry, just swallow. Whatever they've been through in their lives, you and I will never really fully know because what you and I see is only what's in front of our eyes. But you and I don't get to see who they've been and what they've been through and what's impacted them and why they've turned out the way they have. So comes along the Torah and tells me, B'tzedek tishbait amitecha, that if there's anywhere in your creative imagination that will come up with some explanation that could be even far-fetched, that puts this person in a good light, a favorable interpretation, which of the two should I select? What I first heard and saw, or what I'm selecting in my imagination? And the answer is, I've got to use my imagination to judge you favorably. Really? Now that's not what happens in a Beis Din. In Beis Din, there's evidence and there's witnesses, and based on that they give a judgment. But in interpersonal relationships, I'm not your judge. That's not my business. Your mistakes are none of my business. That's Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is all about protecting you with your imperfections, because you're perfectly imperfect. It's supposed to be that way. I'm supposed to have mistakes throughout my character, flaws, inconsistencies, weaknesses. And for you to share my weaknesses with someone else is none of your business. For me to share your weaknesses with other people is none of my business. That's Lashon Hara. But it's not Lashon Hara in the sense of just guilt. It's about protecting each other from who we really are. We're normal with our weaknesses. Oh, you want to marry my son, my daughter? Oh, you want to do business with me? Oh, now I need to know about your character, because that's my business. You want to get involved in my family, with my children, with my business? Oh, now it's my business. Then it's not Lashon Hara. Did you follow? But it all really stems from, what am I thinking about you? Because God doesn't want me to think negative about myself, about others. Comes from Rav Nachman, absolutely astonishing, right at the end of Sichas Haran. That's Rav Nachman's wisdom. You'll see there's two places, Reish Lamed Tes and in Shin Zayin, and Shin Ches. 3 places really. He tells us, don't fall into the trap of saying, oh, the old days were so good. Do you remember the old days? He said don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, it used to be so much cheaper than today. He said, God is improving the world all the time. Tzaddikim came and gone. And even though we're going to say, oh, Yeridas Hadoros, the generation's going down, it's really, really bad. God is... Rav Nachman is saying, God is improving the world all the time. It's getting closer and closer to its final tikkun. So in that final cleanup, it might look like things are really messy, but really it's getting better all the time. So says Rav Nachman, there's a global mindset of how to look at the world. And then there's a very individual mindset. So we're going to touch more on the individual one. So the word leiv we've looked at really means mind. Now that you translate it that way, look at many verses throughout the Torah. It will change your mind. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. Don't hate your brother in your thoughts. It doesn't mean heart. Now if you want to say it means emotions, but that's not what it says. It says in your thoughts. We're going to get to in a few moments why the word leiv means both the icon of emotions and your mind. It's not a mistake. There are no mistakes in Lashon HaKodesh. Biblically, in Hebrew, there are no mistakes. It's perfect. So if God chose one word to have several meanings, that's because they are all correct. They are all not just different, they are different ingredients of the same recipe. So that's why a single word could have multiple meanings, and yet they all be correct, because they're describing different aspects of the same item. I'll give you one example, which fits in what we're talking about, the word Nisayon. Nisayon, how do you translate the word Nisayon? As a test. And Lashon HaKodesh, because it's perfect, Biblical Hebrew is perfect, it's the language God dictated reality with. If you want to know what are the mechanics of a test, all you have to do is open up the word and identify what's the root of Nisayon.
Nes.
The 2-letter root of Nisayon is Nes. What does Nes mean?
Miracle.
Miracle. What else does it mean?
Flag.
Flag. Excellent. What else does it mean? Oh, going down. What else does it mean?
Run away.
Run away. Excellent. Lanus means to run away.
Nice.
Run away, escape.
Yeah.
What else does it mean? A pole. Excellent. Rabbi Shalom, Master of the Universe, in English you've got one word for test, another for miracle, a different one for flag, another one for fleeing or escaping, another one for pole. Rabbi Shalom, why do you have unlimited imagination? Why do you have a separate word for each of these? And God's answer is, there are no mistakes in my language. You're looking at the different ingredients of a Nisayon. Because I get to run away. How do I run away from my Nisayon? Well, it's very easy. That's the easiest one. When I blame other people for what I'm going through. When it's my husband's fault, or it's my children's fault. My mother-in-law, you have no idea. I give my best years of my life to this marriage. And whatever it is I want to blame, or whoever it is I want to blame, see, it's the easiest thing for me to do is play the blame game, because if it's other people's fault that I'm unhappy, in my life, in my marriage, with the kids, in my finances, in my career, if it's anyone or everyone else's fault, who has to change? I don't. Everyone else does. Oh, so I can run away from my Nisayan, but really, what's Hashem going to do to help me see me? Because that's the real purpose of Nisayan. As we get to flag, what is a flag?
It's a sign.
It's a sign. Excellent. That's actually the name of the word degel in the Targum is nes. Sorry, on the word nes, which is a flag, the Targum is ice. It's a sign, a flag. When the Jews went in the Midbar, in the desert, we had flags for each of the 12 tribes. Each had their beautiful colors, their own unique color scheme and their own unique pattern. And comes along God and tells me, a flag gives you identity, shows you the direction you're going in. Oh, so when I'm busy blaming other people for my unhappiness in my marriage, in my children, in my work, in my career, that really, everything that's happening is really just a flag for me to see me. What direction am I going in? Is this what I really want to be? Is this making sense? That's what a pole is elevate. The word nes from the Nisan means elevate. That's what the pole is doing, it's elevating. Nisan means to elevate. Why elevate? Because when we conquer our anger, when we conquer the negative interpretation of ourselves and other people, when we conquer our complaints against God, against people, we feel lower or elevated. We feel self-respecting. When we say no to an extra helping, when we already feel pretty full, but it's really delicious. I mean, really delicious. But we say no, how do we feel? Do we feel like we lost out, or we feel elevated? We've got one person who says we're elevated. Anyone else agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, we feel elevated. Oh, so I can run away. It's really a flag. I can elevate myself. And there's also a miracle. What's the miracle? Ask God. God, you know what? Let's ask ourselves, what's the greatest miracle in history? Creation? Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah Sinai. 10 Makkahs. Makkahs 10. What's the greatest miracle in history? Splitting of the sea? Well, those are miracles for you and I. When God takes water and it turns to blood. Wow, that's brilliant. How do you do that? And God says, well, it's not that complicated because I'm constantly dictating to this liquid to be water. And 1 second later, I can tell it to be blood. It makes, you see, it's not really water all the time. It's on dictate. And therefore, all I have to do is change the dictate. Oh, so God changes nature, and you and I call that a miracle. But ask God, Rabbi Jonathan, the Master of the Universe, that's our definition of miracle, when you change. But what's your definition of a miracle? What would impress you so much? You would say, wow, that's a miracle.
When we change.
Excellent. 10 points for Gryffindor. I wasn't expecting you to get that. That's from Herschel Potterovich. Okay, so, yeah, when we change our nature, when we change who we are, that's a miracle. Oh, that's why the word nes is contained in the Nisayan. That's what Hashem is holding out for. Oh, so now, when we look at the word lave, we have to understand, does it mean heart? Does it mean the physical heart? Does it mean a metaphor? Does it mean your mind? And if it does mean your mind, why does Hashem choose one word, lave, to have so many different meanings? And the answer is, it's not a contradiction. You're not looking at different meanings. You're actually looking at two items which are identical. The lave, as the icon of your emotions, is the same word for mind. Why? Because what controls my emotions? It's really what I'm thinking. That's the bottom line. And it's immediate. It's immediate. There's no difference between the two. I'm going to share with you some examples. Kamayim apanim lepanim. This is taken from Shlomo HaMelech. He has the expression, Kamayim, like waters. Please forgive me, you're not used to this, but I'm just going to translate it the way it is according to the language. Like waters. Mayim is never singular, it's always plural. So the correct translation is always waters. I'll translate myself. Waters. Okay, mayim is waters. Kamayim are panim. Panim, we unfortunately follow the Christian translation and we translate it as face. But panim, as you recognize, is singular or plural. So what's the correct translation? Faces. Ladies? And this is really massive. It's about as massive as Chayyim. Panim, there's no word for panim in singular. It's not Rietti telling you that, that's the Radak. Radak is one of the most famous biblical commentators from the Rishonim. You'll find it in the book of Joshua, Yeshua, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, first chapter, first verse. He tells us there's no word for panim in singular.
What is pan?
Pan means turn.
Panai. In Hebrew?
Panai means my faces.
My faces.
Yes, my faces. Panai is my faces.
Being free.
Lifnot means to turn. You make an about face. You turn in a different direction. But there's no word for face. Why not? If there's no word for face in Lashon Kodesh, what does that mean?
No face.
There's no such thing. Because your face, yes, your face changes every second of your life. You can't have a word for something that doesn't exist. It's not your face is constantly changing. You sit in a dentist chair and he'll tell you your face actually has 46 muscles. Do you know you played the lottery with 46 do you know how many combinations of facial expressions you can make with your facial expressions? Oh, it's unlimited. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm just wondering about the contradiction. You said, like, what is the definition of Hashem when he says a miracle? And you said, when we change our nature.
Yes.
But then you just finished saying that we are perfectly imperfect. And
Yes.
we're exactly the way we're supposed to be.
We're supposed to make mistakes. The proof of that is he gave us a mitzvah of teshuvah. Don't give me a mitzvah called teshuvah unless you're expecting me to mess up. Don't give me Yom Kippur a whole day to clean out my mistakes unless you know. So there's a carbon asham, a carbon chatais. Hashem expects me to mess up. In that, he's also expecting me to have the ability to turn myself around by myself. He doesn't want to force it on me. He'll give me lots of invitations. My mother-in-law, marriage, children, career, different and difficult people are all invitations for me to change the only person I was created to change. So
Basically,
yes.
Her question was, would you say we're perfectly imperfect?
We're supposed to, we were created this world is called Elam HaTikun. From the first mistake, which of course was who? Adam. What was his big mistake? He ate from the tree, but what's interesting is when he was invited to correct his mistake by being asked, is it from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Did you eat from it and that's why you're embarrassed from your nakedness? What was Adam supposed to answer to that question?
Yes,
Hashem knew. Yes, and what should he should have said? One word.
Yes, Ken.
What should he have said?
Sorry.
Sorry, chatati, I made a mistake. The Medrash Haggadah tells us that had Adam said one word, chatati, Hashem would have forgiven him. But instead, what did he do? Ha Isha! That woman! Who's he blaming? His wife. Asher natata imadi, that you gifted to stand by me. Whoa! Who's he blaming? He's blaming Hashem for the wife that. Whoa! In that moment, Hashem called Adam kofer toiv. You are covering. The word kofer, cover comes from kofer. You are denying the good. I gave you a wife. I gave you a partner to grow together, to stand by you, and then you go and use her and me against that. And that's so. Instead of taking responsibility, he was running away, blaming other people. So Hashem said, I'll deal with you later. Turns to Chava, and he asked her point blank, Chava, why did you eat from the tree? And now, what was Hashem inviting her to answer by asking her a question? Why didn't you just say, Chava, you ate from the tree! I told you not to! Why didn't he just zap her straight away? Why did he ask her a question?
An opportunity.
Opportunity for what? For her to express what's on her mind. She could in that moment say, take responsibility and say one word. Chatati, I'm sorry. Teshuvah. Chazal tell us, same Medrash Haggadah tells us something extraordinary. Something to think about, because I haven't figured out this amazing response. If Chava had said one word, Chatati, I made a mistake, Hashem would have forgiven both of them. He didn't give that for Adam, he would have only forgiven Adam. But through Chava, he would have been able to forgive both of them. Mechila is a very powerful language from the Lashon Machal, which means erase. Completely new slate. But we blew it. And here we are playing the blame game. And it started with Adam, blaming Chava, blaming the snake. So, but Hashem will give us another chance, another chance, another chance. You know, it's actually very important to understand the original sin, the original mistake, because when we realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Adam a chance to mess up, and he did worse than just eat from the tree, he denied that it was his fault. Chava, instead of taking responsibility, denied it and passed on the blame. So now we've got this in our DNA. But you and I, if you and I were there, I think we'd be really disappointed. Oh my gosh, you just set the clock back. You realize that Mashiach could have come right now, and instead, it's nearly the year 6000 Adam. You messed up. You know what? The Tikkun Olam is 5,777 years so far, nearly 78. And we're still fixing your problem. I think you and I would understand that we'd be slightly frustrated. Ladies, figure this out. Do the math. At the end of every single day of creation, Hashem gave a report. Vayar Hashem ki tov. He saw it was good. He missed out the second day, split the waters, something's supposed to be together, split not good, so he left it out for the next day, then he said it twice. But at the end of each day, he said his report. Now, if God says something's good, you can bet your bottom dollar, that's pretty good. What's good? The world was a mess, it wasn't finished. It wasn't complete. So why are you saying it's good? Oh, so Hashem is telling us, same man of Shagata, good is even when something's not perfect. It's not finished. Now, at the end of all 6 days, and by the way, when did Hashem give his report? The beginning of each day or the end of each day? End of each day. The end of each day. At the end of the 6 days, Hashem says the following. Vayar Hashem, verse 30 in chapter 1. Hashem saw et kol asher asa, all that he had made. V'hinei, hinei is a very important word to translate. It means behold. Behold means pay extra attention. Every word in the Torah requires my attention. But if God goes out of his way to say, please pay attention, that means, oh my gosh, something's really heavy, really big coming up now. So Hashem says, I looked at everything that I made, v'hinei, and please pay extra attention, tov, ma'od. It's exceedingly good. So it must have been really, really good. Do you agree? When did he say those words? Beginning of the 6th day or the end of the 6th day?
Beginning.
When did he say those words? The report was at the end of every single day. When did he give the last report? After he created man.
Right.
A man was created when?
Friday.
6th day. Which hour? It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Lamed Ches, page 38. It tells us his body was made from the ground at the 3rd hour of the morning. 4th hour, Hashem blew into his nostrils his neshama, his soul. 5th hour, he stood on his feet. There's always a language of independence. You can stand on your own 2 feet. 6th hour, he named all the elements in creation, all the animals in creation, because he had Das Elyon, he had God's mind. He couldn't blame his parents for the way he turned out. He had the perfect mind, so he could look at everything in creation and identify which were the Isis, which letters Hashem pronounced to create that item, and he said that word and it created it. And now Adam was able to identify what were the only letters that created that item. 6th hour, he names everything. 7th hour, he gets married to Chava. 8th hour, she gives birth to Cain and his twin sister. 9th hour, God says, don't eat from the tree.